welcome. My name is Matthew Bichar. I'm the District Sales Manager for United Rentals Trench Safety. We're super happy to be sponsoring today's session and introduce the speakers. So the session today is Safety Concerns, What Keeps You Up at Night? And the speakers are Jason Gordon, Jeremy Courtney, and John Justa. So we'll kick it off. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for hosting us. I'm going to stand up and walk around because sitting behind a table makes me feel like I'm in court. So I'm actually going to step down here so that I can walk around safely. So for those of you who don't know me or recognize me, my name is Jason Gordon. I'm with Cobalt Safety. We are a third-party occupational health and safety consulting company. I've been doing occupational safety for about 25 years. For 10 of those years, I actually worked with Mr. Justa at the Ministry of Labor. He actually was one of my mentors and trainers when I was there, and I'm actually very honored to be sharing this platform today with John and with Jeremy as well. I think you've got two really excellent speakers plus me. So make use of it. I hope everybody has lots of questions. So a little bit of my background, as I mentioned, 25 years doing occupational safety, 10 of those with the Ministry of Labor. In 2014, end of 2014, I started my own business doing occupational health and safety consulting. Since then, I've joined up with Cobalt Safety. I've been involved in about 250 accident investigations. I've been involved in 15 fatalities and about 125 incidents where people have had life-changing injuries. And so I do what I do out of a passion for making certain that people do not have those life-changing injuries to try to prevent accidents in the workplace. So when we were presented with this back in February, John from the OCA reached out to us and asked me if I would be interested in doing this and coordinating with Jeremy and John to do it. And we threw around some thoughts on what we're actually going to talk about. And so we've kind of lined it up, each doing our own piece. So we're going to have 10 minutes of each of us. And you'll notice I'm burning as much of my time as I can just introducing us. And then at the end, we're going to have questions and answers, open forum. So the topic that I chose to talk about is a really interesting one. It's what happens when you take a shortcut. So out of curiosity, who in the room is senior management for your company? Okay, mid-management supervisors, safety managers, good stuff, and any worker level? One, okay, couple over there, okay. So senior managers and mid-managers and safety reps. Do you feel like sometimes it's possible that people in the field are taking a shortcut? Sure, right? I think anyone that's saying no is living in a surreal world. Worker level. You don't have to admit to it, and if your boss is here, you ever take a shortcut in the field? I know folks that have been workers in the past that are now mid-management, they'll nod their head and say, yeah, we do. What is the cost of actually taking a shortcut? And a lot of people don't recognize the cost behind taking a shortcut. Taking a shortcut could typically be done for the sake of productivity. It could be done out of trying to just make the day shorter. I want to get home 5 minutes earlier. It could also include taking a shortcut where you're not enforcing health and safety when you ought to be. And so I'm going to talk about the cost associated with that. A lot of people don't recognize the cost associated. Would you believe that taking a shortcut can cost your company $500,000? Yeah, it happens really fast. If we take data that the WSIB released back in 2011, 2012, they told us that the average lost time injury has a direct cost to the employer of about $30,000. So, how does the direct cost to the employer actually happen? It's WSIB. Everyone knows what the I in WSIB is? Someone tell me? Insurance, right? They are an insurance company. And so the I in WSIB is insurance. What happens when you have a car accident or a home claim to your insurance rates? They go up. What happens when you have a workplace accident? Your WSIB premiums go up. So that's where that cost comes from, that direct cost, the $30,000. What people don't recognize is the indirect costs. So if you have a worker that gets injured at work, they're now off on a lost time injury. That's going to cost you $30,000. Does the task that they were performing, does that just disappear? That work stops, no longer has to be done? Or do we have to actually still get that task accomplished? We still need to do the work. So now we have to hire someone to come in and take their place. And your safety person is going to tell you, we've hired somebody new, we need to make sure that they get the proper training, right? So now we're investing in training. Now we're going to have to make sure that we have a supervisor who is working on supervising them more. So we're going to have a supervisor who's focusing more on looking after the new worker. That's an increased cost. That supervisor now needs some support from other supervisors or coordinators, et cetera. That's an increased cost, all right? Let's say the worker had I always use a broken leg or a broken ankle. So let's say it's a broken ankle. The doctor says that worker cannot drive. But the doctor also says that you can bring them back to work on early return to work. And so you now have a responsibility in the system to bring them back and get them back in the workplace, all right? Now, if they were a field worker and you're now bringing them into the office, you're going to have them counting paper clips. That's what I call it. They're counting paper clips for you, right? Did you need the paper clips to be counted in your office? No. But we're going to have them counting paper clips. We're going to have them doing a task that didn't necessarily need to be done. Because it was a broken leg or a broken ankle, their doctor also said they can't drive the car, all right? So now, I'm going to start picking on people. We're going to have Kevin here go out and pick up the worker every morning and every afternoon, take him back home. Company vehicle, company mileage, company time. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, our injured worker now has to go for physiotherapy. So Kevin is going to be the chauffeur again and drive the worker out to do the physiotherapy appointments. Physiotherapy is 45 minutes long. There's not much else that we can get Kevin to do. So he's going to sit in his truck and play Angry Birds for 45 minutes while our injured worker is getting treated. All right? Is that productive use of Kevin's time? Is that a loss for the company? Sure it is. All right? Thank you for being our chauffeur, Kevin. So that's a loss to us. It was a broken ankle. You have this accident occur on your site. Who are you notifying? Somebody shout it out. Ministry of Labor. Now, if you're calling the Ministry of Labor and telling them to come to your site and do an investigation because somebody got hurt, somebody in your head office is probably making another really important phone call. Who would they be calling? Their lawyer. Yeah. What's a good labor lawyer cost these days? Any guesses? And I don't mean the best, just good. You might be in trouble. 6 to 7. When they're in their office behind a desk working for you. If they actually have to go stand in the courtroom for you, 11 to 13 per hour. All right? That adds up. Your lawyer is going to say, don't worry, we got you. You're in good hands. We've got you covered. And they're going to hang up, and then they're going to call the Jag dealership, and they're going to say, hey, remember that Type F that I drove last month? I'd like it in metallic blue. And Could you actually get my client's name embossed on the seats for me so that I always remember who bought me this car, all right? Because your lawyer is going to look after you really, really well. They're going to put in a lot of long, hard hours at $600 or $700 an hour to make sure that you're protected, all right? You have reputational costs, you have investigation, you have loss of productivity in the field while the investigation happens. WSIB told us that all of that adds up to 5 times the amount of the direct costs. And this is 2012 numbers. So we're at $30,000 WSIB costs. We're now adding 5 times that, so now we're at $180,000. That really good lawyer that you hired, guess what? Ministry of Labor in court, somewhere, I think it's still John, correct me if I'm wrong, 92% of what they take, they win? Yeah, in the 90s. In the 90s. What they take to court, they're going to win. So your really good lawyer, aside from buying himself a new Jaguar, they are going to basically get you a reduced fine. All right? Legal fees, fines, and fines that keep going up. I don't know if anyone's been watching, but over the last few years, those fines keep coming up. All right? It's very easy for us to add on another $200,000 to $300,000 in those legal fees and fines. We've seen the proof, we've seen the math time and time again, and this is going back 2012, 2013. At the end of the day, you're looking at about $500,000 because of a shortcut. Housekeeping, common cause for broken ankles. Does housekeeping cost $500,000? Last time I checked, it doesn't. Does telling someone to put on a hard hat cost $500,000? Does making sure that the worker does it right and is trained on how to do it and making sure that they don't take the shortcut, does that cost $500,000? The answer is no. But does it save you $500,000? Every single time. Every single time that you fix the shortcut, every single time that you address the safety concern. And I guarantee you, we've all dealt with this. There's, Billy Bob there not wearing his hard hat or not wearing his high vis. We have to tell him all the time, and I just don't feel like dealing with him today and telling him that he has to put on his hard hat or his high vis or whatever it might be. That decision of inactivity just put your company at risk for $500,000. Every time you fix it, you save your company $500,000. And I always joke with people, you should keep a running tab of how much you've saved your company, so then when it's performance review time, you can go in and say, hey, this is what I saved you guys last year just by correcting the problems every time that I saw them. Just by making sure people didn't take a shortcut, because every time that you stop the shortcut, you save the company $500,000. I'm going to pass it over to John, who's going to discuss due diligence. Are you next or Jeremy next? Jeremy next.
Right, thank you. So my name's Jeremy Courtney. I work for BGC Construction and Restoration and also JBPA Developments. I'm their safety officer. I've been doing health and safety in both Australia and Canada for 24 years. Before that, I did health and safety in retail for 10 years. So I've got a little bit of understanding of on-the-ground health and safety. And in the last few years, the topic which we picked in our conversation in February was what keeps you up at night. And what was keeping me up at night was the amount of paperwork and chasing paperwork and unwritten paperwork and the dog ate my breakfast paperwork on all the sites. So I thought I'd just give you an insight of what, kind of what my thought pattern was to try and alleviate that. So a lot of the things of what keeps you up at night. Is the project on time? The materials or trades turning up? Or is it safety compliance? I'm a safety professional, so I'm going to kind of look at safety compliance for that side of it. I know a lot of you are owners and project managers and things like that, and site supers. So is it the employee safety compliance? Is it the site safety compliance? Or is it just the general trade safety compliance on sites? They all kind of vary, but they all mix into one basket. And what I found was, do you still use paper binders and keep up with safety on site? I'd find I'd go in to do orientations, and someone else has come and done some orientations while I wasn't there, and there'd be another 35 orientations shoved into the binder but not put into the order so we could find them. Site inspections done on paper, there'd be a straight line down a page on tick the box, which means the person hasn't done them, he's just sat straight down. Toolbox talks, there'd be a blank page put in saying that they've done their toolbox talk, no one signed it. The pre-start inspections were not existent. It was all over the place, and you're constantly looking for things, like even your SDSs, trying to find the binder with the SDSs in it, what's happened to it, where's it gone. It's great that it's missing because, I mean, someone wanted to use it, but where is it? So you're always looking for things, and you're constantly thinking, oh my God, what am I going to walk into this time when you go into a site? So then with some bright idea, I said, have you thought about moving to safety online? And I started hearing other companies using this online thing. I thought, oh, online, I reckon I can do that. So I went around trying to find a few companies. There are many companies out there. I've just listed a couple of companies here, and Procore is a management tool. It's used just overall for project management, but there is a safety feature in it. So I did put that in there because some people do use Procore and don't realise that there's a safety side to it as well. Corefix and SiteDocs are more safety-orientated companies. Corefix is Ottawa-based. I always like to let people know when something's close by. Look, it's not limited to those names. There's a lot of others out there, okay? But I just think I've used all three of these, that's why I know them. Why I find safety online really helpful in construction is this, and this list is just, there's numerous other reasons. All the workers on site these days have access to a smartphone or a computer. You might have someone, I heard earlier, who's got a flip phone, but they've got access to a smartphone. Compliance is made easy because everything is one click away. The ease of access to information. I have the Green Book on every single person's phone, and it's an e-law. Plus it's got the index in it, so you can click it and go exactly what you're looking for, and it's there in their hand. All their SDSs are there. The ability to pass on information more efficiently. Once again, all the legislated information is there via links. The equipment checks. I've got, I think, 75 different types of equipment we can check. I even do orientations, are all online. Site inspections. Ability to see where compliance is lacking and correcting it faster. And that is the big point at the bottom. You can actually see prior to walking onto a site, you know exactly what is missing and how to fix it. So you know where to direct your attention just quickly. Some other benefits, your HR department might want to put timesheets on there. I know you can do that with Corefix. You can do PDIs. We're doing PDIs using the Corefix these days. Construction drawings are always updated to the latest version. So you've got everybody looking at the same drawing, at the correct drawing, instead of coming, oh yeah, I'm sorry, the room's wrong. I used a 6 years old drawing. But communication's another really good factor. You can either send a message to one person, the entire trade, an entire building site, or multiple sites or multiple trades if you've got an issue which you notice on a site and you want everybody to know about it straight away. Photos with a checklist, and having a photo attached to a checklist, the word saying photo speaks 1,000 words is so true. I'll go into that a bit later with some of the photos, but you can really see what's good on site as well as what's needed to be fixed. And there's nothing wrong with showing what's good on site, because if you have something go wrong down the track and you can show that you've had something wrong and you've fixed it just by photos, the fine from the ministry is going to drop significantly. So it might not be $500,000, it might be $400,000, but that $100,000 doesn't come to me. I wish it did, but it'd be nice. But daily logs as well are all on there. It's all online, and because it's easy to use, okay? So what you need to look for online with your safety software supplier is ease of use for your company, for what you do. What's good for my company might be useless for your company. But there are so many different ones out there that you can shop around and look around. The other thing to look at is the software cost. It's huge. The difference is huge on some companies. You're talking thousands, but it's not much when you're looking at overall year profitability. If you're not happy, change your company. I mean, I started all the companies, both companies on one with SiteDocs, and I realised SiteDocs was not working for the high-rises as well as CoreFix would, because CoreFix will be able to link into Procore, and so it made it much better moulding for the company. So I worked it out, and we also found out with that we were able to put videos into it and things like that. Can the software be used offline? There's a lot of workers out there who don't have a data plan, okay? But can the software? Yes. Most of these companies, you can use it offline, and once they go online, you can tell because you get all these checklists appear on your phone straight away. But it's great, but it still can be used. It's better than paper or no system at all. The ability to see who's complying with safety instead of a week later when you might visit a site is great, because I'm able to turn around and say just one word to someone, because the next line here is going to tell you about that. Human nature is to drop what's not being checked for saving time. Because if you look at the amount of work we're asking our workers to do or our supervisors to do, is more and more, but the 8 hours has not changed. So if they can find something to drop without being noticed, they're going to do it. And it's just human nature, because you can only do a certain amount of things. Having something online which is really simple to use, and by you prior to going on site and having a quick look and seeing what's there and what's missing, you can just say 2 words, say thank you so much. The way you did that checklist with the photos was brilliant. The swing stage checklist, taking the photo of the weights, that's a game changer. You'll never get in trouble with that. They realise you're checking, so they're going to continue to do that. But if you don't check things, people are just going to stop. And that's just human nature. And I've seen that over 20 years, and it's just a matter of getting constant reminder, and people will do it. The ability to read what's written on a checklist. My writing, I should have been a doctor by my writing, because I can't even read it half the time. But if it's a checklist, I can read it. I can read exactly what it is. I've got elevated work platform down here, just for an example. So if you're using a checklist, there's an issue that's required maintenance. You might not be able to read what it is on a paper checklist. But with the electronic one, with a photo, you'll see exactly what's wrong. So you can actually send that to the mechanic or the rental place, and they can bring out the correct part. So it's only one visit to fix. So the machine might be down for 2 hours instead of all day, because they had to come and go 3 times to find the parts. And it also costs you less moolah. So it's really helpful in a lot of things. And the last piece here is compliance with the ministry. If the ministry see something in action, they're going to be much happier with the way you're doing your work, and they won't keep digging further and further. That's just my feeling. These guys can put their fingers in ears. But it's true, and they really do. If they can see that you're trying and they can see that it's progressing well, they'll be much happier, and they'll feel much happier with the site and the way things are going. With training certificates, it was always a constant nightmare for me trying to work out. One company had about 70 people, trying to remember who's got their working at heights due, who's got the first aid due, who's got swing stage due, and things like that. With these online, it took a tiny bit of time. In fact, the actual company put all the training certificates in for me. But you can go online and give you alerts 3 months out, whose training's needed when and where and what it is. So you can book them in, and it's really fast and easy, and you know you're not going to be missing out on people all of a sudden can't go and do this work because their training cards have lapsed. If you've got to go into another site and people want to see, they ask, are your guys trained for this? You can go bang, bang, bang. I'm sending Fred, Joe and Sarah to the site. Here are their training records, and bang, they've got it, and they feel confidence knowing that not only have we got this company we've hired is reputable, they're able to send us their training cards on the spot, and they feel more confident in your company. And also it helps with the ministry inspectors who might be checking some certifications. right? They can come on site and they can show, they might turn around to your working at heights and they'll say, have you done your on-site training or your back at the workshop training for these guys who've done the training? You can show them a training slip, bang, they're happy. Instead of going through paperwork, I've got it somewhere, I know I did it, it was on Tuesday, what date year was it? It's there. It just makes it easy for you. So once again, everything's in one place, okay? So you've got your checklists, your resources, your employee training certificates, your online links to all regulations, the directions to the closest hospital. So if someone's needs to go to a hospital, you can go, bang, there it is, they can see it on their phone. Emergency procedures, you completed JSAs, your PSIs, your risk assessments. I've got all my safe work procedures sitting in the resources on these apps. So if the people want to think, right, I haven't done this for a while, what's the safe work procedure? It's there. All the SDSs are there. So it's just a matter of clicking on it. What PPE do I know? I know I've got to wear some PPE. Which ones do I need to use? It's all there. It's not having to go and try and find the binder, which might be missing, but then it might be out of date too in the binder. Plus the site-specific safety requirements, your rescue plans. I've got all of these in there to make it really simple. And the way I set it up was to try and make it as easy as possible for people to fill out. Because it's paperless, you're not going to be running out of checklists. I don't know if I said this one before, but the amount of times I turn up to a site and I'm using swing stages just because of the people working on them are a special breed. And they always, it's a dog ate my swing stage paperwork. Well, where is it? I've done it. Yeah, I've done it, boss. So where is it? So it's upstairs. So I'd go upstairs and I'd find the binder. There's no, it's in the car. So I'd go to the car and I'd look. Oh, no, I ran out of paper 2 days ago and I forgot to call you. So you've done the check there? Yeah, I've done it. It's in my head. So if something goes wrong, how are you going to show that you've done it? I said, but I've done it. Okay. By having it online, I can see prior to going to site whether the checklists are done or not. And I find these days that the culture has changed, that these guys are no longer dummies, they're actually doing the right thing, and they know that I'm checking all the time. So if I'm coming to a site, it's pre-done, as it's supposed to be. But the culture has changed within the company. Since I went to online instead of paper, I found the safety culture has really improved. SDSs are actually getting looked at. Risk assessments are being done because they're simple. I've made them simple with drop-down menus within the site apps, with the apps. Just click on this and this and this. What are you doing? And it shows you, it talks you through it. So if you think about safety and you talk about safety, you're going to do safety, and this helps you do it. Your vehicle checks. There's no heavy or unorganised binders. I'm not wasting 3 hours on binders around the sites during the week. The rest of it's all pretty obvious there. But the ability to see what's been completed and what's not. And that's more as in what's not. It's what's more important is what's not getting done. Some of the other benefits in the last couple of years have really come out has been the QR codes. So I'm using Corfix on the high-rise sites with JBPA. I've now got our orientations are all online. I've got them in English, French and Spanish. So the first person the worker does, they come in, they scan the QR code. The first thing their phone asks them is, what language? English, French or Spanish. And they click English, French or Spanish. Next thing it comes to the questionnaire, and the top line of the questionnaire is a link to a video. The video, if they clicked English, will be in English. If they click French, it'll be in French. If they click Spanish, it's in Spanish. The video was done by using AI. So it's text, it's just keying on the computer to voice. Right? So if I want to change something for site-specific, I'll use the young guy who understands computers to go and just change those 2 words in there, and they make it really site-specific. But once again, AI is now helping me, which my kids laugh at. They kind of go, you know what AI stands for? Yeah, kind of. But it's helping us. And so I've now got the young Mexican kids who are coming onto my sites. I've had 5 in the last month come up to me and say thank you, because they're getting their orientations in Spanish or a dialect of Spanish which they can understand. That is helpful. And it just means that you're getting more compliance on site. So I should digress on that one. But it's that also leads into your ability to pass on information in a more timely manner. You look more professional. and other companies take your safety compliance to a higher level. If you're sending them, things which look neat and organised, they're going to take you much more professional than a little bit of paper hanging upside down on a nail in your trailer. Enables you to see the areas of safety on site or within the company that need attention, and that is what's more important, is be able to keep on top of what's needing attention than missing other things as well. It helps with safety audits, for safety compliance, for the people who are doing core or ISO or things like that, because you've got your proof of documentation there for them. And the main thing is it helps you sleep better at night. So thank you. That's my presentation. I'll hand it on to John. Get out of here.
Might need tech support here, but
Yeah, I think I might too. Let's see how we go. Where are you?
top.
Come on. There we go.
You get rid of the left panel, but.
You can do that.
Okay, well, it's 2:30. Time's up. Let's ask questions. That way I don't have to talk. I think I'm speaking to the converted, and I lost my screen.
I hit the PowerPoint.
It wants to update. I don't want to do an update. There we go.
Try clicking on PowerPoint.
No, it's not. How do I get it? It's on the screen here, but it's not on the projector. Put pressure on you. I'll talk while Matthew plays with this.
Sure.
Many of you I know, as Jason said, I recently retired from the Ministry of Labour. I spent 20 years there. 6 weeks away from 3 years ago retiring, and I will just
actually,
keep looking.
give me a second.
Got it on one. But anyways, we unfortunately did many of the similar things by investigating accidents and trying to achieve compliance, but what are you talking about? Multitasking here. I won't watch what he's doing. Jason was talking about money spent, and I have a slide somewhere in there that talks about the city of Sudbury. So if you're here representing an owner, thank you. If you're here. So that's me. I'm going to move on. While you glance at that, long story short, people would always call you and ask you questions. And I had a conversation with Bob one day about chainsaw, PPE, and we debated what he needed to wear. And if you've heard this before, I apologize, but nowhere in the conversation did he tell me he was holding his chainsaw in this particular fashion. So obviously, a slight attempt at humor here, but you're only going to answer the question based on what people say to you. If they don't paint the complete picture, you're at a disadvantage, and the next thing you hear, well, Jason, the inspector, said I could do that, or John, the inspector, said I could do it. Well, what did you tell him you were doing? How were you doing it? Things may have changed. So in terms of finances, there's just a couple of very recent screenshots of some of the court bulletins that the ministry has put out, from tens to hundreds of thousands. And there's a mining company in Ontario that recently got a fine of, I believe, $1.3 million with the victim surcharge. What we haven't talked about, and we're not going to necessarily, is criminal prosecutions. As we know, this stems from the tragedy some years ago, and we've certainly seen an uptick lately in criminal prosecutions, and the criminal code does not have a limit on the financial penalty or jail time. A supervisor was recently convicted to 3.5 years of jail time for the death of a dump truck driver under his care. I suspect that will be appealed, but so a little bit about OSHA, and we're talking particularly about due diligence. Where does that all come from? Section 66 of the Act basically says if you're charged as a constructor, employer, supervisor, you can apparently defend yourself by proving you took every reasonable precaution in the circumstances. Well, if you're not a constructor, employer, or supervisor, you're off the hook, right? No. There's a little section below that that talks about a manager, an agent, a representative, an officer, a director, or supervisor. So it generally rolls up to the accused, but nowhere on that slide does it actually use the term due diligence. So if we go to court, we're going to talk about due diligence. So I started talking about the city of Sudbury. I apologize for the picture. I borrowed this off their website, but this is where Mrs. Paquette was killed some 10 years ago. She was run over by a road grader trying to cross through a construction site. This is a little bit of the saga that the city of Sudbury has gone through in court. After court case number 6, they had spent $677,000 defending themselves. So the spoiler alert is the most recent decision at number 9 is the city was found to have due diligence and they're found not guilty. It's probably costing them maybe close to $1 million, I don't know. But that certainly brought to light the whole argument of due diligence. They were charged, they were an owner, as you know probably, they were charged as both a constructor and employer and found not guilty of all charges. So in terms of occupational health and safety, what's the context? If the Crown can prove you did or did not do something, you're guilty. If you did do something, meaning you gave a piece of equipment that wasn't properly maintained, you did not do something, you did not ensure a guardrail was in place. That's the Crown's job, to prove something happened. It's now on you to defend yourself. So we call that due diligence. What does it look like? How would you define it? So you can go back 44 years ago, and this is a court from Yukon, and look at the 5 last bullet points here. The court is basically saying we're going to look at the gravity of potential harm, the alternatives available to the accused, the likelihood of harm, the degree of knowledge of the accused, and is it beyond your control? So I'm going to talk for about a minute. If you want to scan that code, you can, or send me an email, I'll send it to you. This is from Canley. This is the court decision in this particular case. An inspector shows up, and there is a masonry restoration taking place around this building. So do you have any idea what the risk, what hazard might you be thinking of if you're doing masonry restoration on the outside of this building? Anybody? Falling material? Is there anything else that might fall?
The worker?
A worker?
Some stages.
So I'm simply saying that because I don't think fall should strike anybody as, oh, I never thought of that. So the supervisor's there, the inspector shows up, there's 3 workers up on the scaffold, and basically they're all exposed to a fall of more than 3 meters, which means either 2.4 or 3 meters in Ontario. Fall protection is required. 2 of them are not protected. 1 of them is climbing, so on and so forth, and the supervisor gets charged. What does he get charged with? At the bottom of the screen, you're supposed to follow and make sure workers follow Section 26. The current section says, well, if you can't put up a guardrail, you have to have something else. It's hierarchical. Back in the day of this particular case, there wasn't a hierarchy, but nonetheless, we're looking for a guardrail on scaffold, if not fall protection. So the court has to look at several things, and it asks 4 very specific questions. For each one of those questions, it looks at the legislation, what is the evidence that's available to the court, and it pronounces its position. So the first 3 questions, were workers exposed to a fall of more than 3 meters? If that's the charge, the Crown has to prove. If they were exposed, was the accused in fact the supervisor? So the Crown would have to advance evidence that Bob was in fact the supervisor. And if Bob was the supervisor, they were exposed to a fall, did the accused fail to ensure? Fail to ensure what? Fail to ensure that they were protected from falling. So as a result of the first 3 questions, the court says, I'm not satisfied by the evidence that the defendant, having given them the knowledge and equipment, then he ensured the workers he was supervising were working in a manner. So read between the lines. Here's the equipment, you have the training, go work safely. Is that due diligence? That's his defense. He defended himself in court. He didn't hire a lawyer. He saved the $600, $700, or $300, or $200, or whatever. So, question number 4. So if the supervisor didn't do what they were supposed to, has the defendant defended himself by exercising sufficient due diligence? There's 2 branches of a due diligence defense. One has to do with a mistaken set of facts. I cannot find you a good decision. It's very seldomly used, but it basically says, you know, the officer showed up and said, I didn't need to wear a hard hat. He actually gave me an inspection report. In the inspection report said I didn't need to wear a hard hat. Somebody got hurt because they weren't wearing a hard hat. I relied in good faith on the inspector's position. That would be that defense. Very, very seldom used. The other one is that you took all reasonable steps. So the defendant submits that he took all reasonable steps in the circumstances and that his due diligence would exonerate him. Therefore, the court must focus on the conduct in relation to the charge, providing women's training, providing a safety orientation, providing anything to do with something other than fall protection is not a due diligence defense for a fall protection charge. It has to relate to the facts of the case. So the bottom paragraph says, not whether the defendant exercised a more general standard of care, but what did he specifically do regarding that case? So if you go back far enough, to 1992, there's a Ministry of Environment case, there's 14 factors, and basically the court is saying, what did you do on that day? Not what did you do the week before, the month before. So they looked at 6 particular things out of the 14 that were relevant to health and safety. The nature and gravity of the adverse effect. Can I have a show of hands to suggest, tell me that you don't think somebody's going to be badly hurt falling 4 frames of scaffolding? The nature and gravity. A reasonable person would have foreseen. Was it reasonable to foresee that somebody could potentially fall off a scaffold? Are there alternative solutions available? If it's not guardrail, then why not fall protection in terms of travel restraint, let's say? Looking at the legislation, looking for matters beyond the control of the defendant. I was there 3 minutes ago. I actually used whatever app he was talking about, and I documented that 11:32, everybody was tied off. 3 minutes later, somebody fell. That may be compelling evidence to show that you were doing your job trying to ensure. So they untied after you left, let's say. He advanced that he'd been in this position for 6 years. Long story short here, the scope of actions taken to deal with the issue must be weighed. Noncompliance with fall protection apparently exposes to potential grave consequences, right? Giving workers the equipment and knowledge is good, but it doesn't require superhuman effort to make sure that they actually use it. Long story short, he's found guilty, he's satisfied, and the court has assigned a penalty against him. In terms of injuries, I sat down in 2000 and I read a 26-page preview of what the Ministry of Labor job was. And I thought, wow, I think I could do that. I don't know if I did it or not, but they hired me for 20 years worth. The point is, in all seriousness, the ripple effect of workplace injuries. Unfortunately, money always seems to, come to the top, and we see the news bulletins. But it's really the ripple effects, in my opinion, and we've seen and we've interviewed people, we've talked to people, and that's where we need to focus the preventative aspect of it and say, we're going to try and eliminate pain and suffering. If you've been there, done that, Threads of Life is a great association to connect with. So I turned that off earlier so we wouldn't get back feed. So I will stand here for a moment and direct all your questions to Jason or Jeremy. How's that? Any questions, thoughts, contradictions?
So, since nobody else is going to kick it off, John, what, in your opinion, what is the most often missed or the largest gap when it comes to due diligence at an employer level?
I don't know.
Blindsided. It's a question I get asked a lot, so given being in your presence, I thought this would be a good one to ask.
We've had the misfortune, I think, of seeing some really good employers with a good system in place that have not implemented it in the field. And I really struggled with, what do you talk about to a room full of the converted? You're not here because you don't care about this, you're here, And Moody Drive, unfortunately, is power line contact from a few years ago, and Hydro Ottawa was the defendant, and they brought in a whole series of binders of stuff, and the court said, you can't do everything to screen them in the door, make sure they're okay, and then let them be on their own afterwards. So if you have a system, make sure you're following it.
And that's an interesting one, and we didn't rehearse this beforehand, but it is one of the things that I see a lot is companies will have a really polished program, and it's sitting in white binders on a shelf somewhere. And there's no, I always call it the dirty boots. There's no dirty boots associated with it. And I think that's a key thing, is having that, if you have the program, having it implemented. So thank you for that.
Should we call out somebody in the audience and put
Yeah.
them on this? Everything, go ahead.
So on that, the IHSA, great training organisation, they've got their basics of supervision. It's now 2 days, and I think, from my understanding, it used to be 3 days, if not 4 days, because companies complained losing their supervisors for too long. Yet a joint health and safety member, it's 2 3-day sessions, 6 days. So it doesn't make sense that your joint health and safety person has more training than a supervisor. It's bizarre. You look at it and it's just wrong. You're 100% correct. And the biggest trouble is that the lobby groups pushed for it to be shortened, and the training organisations had no choice but shorten because people weren't sending them. But if you look at things like your basics of supervision for your supervisors, it's a really good course. But it just helps the supervisor have a basic understanding of the Green Book. But realistically, supervision is just every day they're learning more and more and more. I've found myself with the best supervisors are the ones who keep notebooks about what went wrong and pass it on than what went right. So if they're going to another job, they know what to look for, and they're passing the information on to other people. I remember last time we got to a building this stage, this thing nearly happened. So you know to look for it, and that's encouragement for the supervisors to I mean, it's in-field training, but yeah, that's my kind of answer.
Every once in a while, every year, the ministry does have compliance initiatives. There's apparently one coming soon. It usually gets released April 1st, but nobody is able to find it on the website yet. But it was a number of years ago that MOL did supervisory competency, and we used to call them blitzes. Apparently that wasn't an appropriate term anymore, so we call them compliance initiatives, but it was a good one. And I think you always feel bad for the person who's been designated the supervisor, and they really do not understand what responsibility they have. And we did issue an order. One of our colleagues issued an order to have, say, Bob trained as a supervisor, and that order was appealed, and it was successfully appealed. And the reason it was successfully appealed is we basically stipulated that Bob had to be competent. What we ended up writing was an order that said, you need to appoint a competent supervisor. We couldn't ensure that Bob was, because I said, well, what if we don't want to train Bob? What if we want to bring Susie in instead of Bob? And so it was a little bit of a semantic lawyer's game, and that was one of those expensive lawyers, but, so the point was valid. But so, yes, it's a concern, and I think different sectors have different challenges, and the poor cousin residential seems to be the lagging industry here by far.
I'm going to, I would be remiss if I didn't self-plug. We have a supervisor due diligence course that's really good. We focus on note-taking, documentation, and what a supervisor needs to put in place to protect themselves and their company. And people always ask me, how does it vary from the IHSA course? We kind of pick up where the IHSA leaves off, and we run with it. I think, aside from plugging our own course, one of the things that employers need to do is to invest in their supervisors continually and continue with I struggle with calling it training. It's professional development, and continue the professional development of your team so that they are in the best position to defend your due diligence or support your due diligence.
And on that, professional development, it's and a lot of the people in here I know have also found it's mental development, the mental training, and how to deal with situations, how to deal with your mental health, how important your mental health is amazing. And a lot of companies out there now are doing mental health training. And if you've got a good supervisor, the best money you'll ever spend is putting someone through a mental health training session, because it helps them as well as the people under them, and so they can recognise what's happening on their site. Because WSIB does cover mental health now, so if someone's got an issue, but it can also help prevention. It could be between stopping someone killing themselves and someone turning out and someone being there the next day. And it's real. Construction has got the highest rate of suicides for men. I'm not sure about the ladies, because there's still unfortunately not enough women in construction. There needs to be more. But it's just really important to recognise, as managers, as owners of companies, even as other supervisors, mental health is so important out there.
5 minutes left if I look at Matthew's cheat sheet here, but any, yes? So I'll give you an anecdotal quick response, and then my friends here may add to it. But lost time injury rates are documented as declining in Ontario, some of the lowest in the world. I don't know why we still keep killing 20 to 30 workers every year in construction. It doesn't make sense to me. But long story short, I have 3 children. When each one of them got to grade 9, I said, how about we bring our kids to work? And then I would throw them in a government vehicle, and we would drive around job sites. So we're talking probably 20 years ago, roughly, my first one. And you just left the office 2 minutes, and you'd run into stuff, and here, look at this, 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 right? And then my second one, and then my third one. And there's, 7, 8 years in between them? I should know this, but anyways, they're only my kids. But it got harder and harder, and it actually clicked. And, I had to do a little more planning to find a job site that wasn't quite as safe. And you look at residential now. When was the last time you saw homes? Now they attach anchors. When I started in 1988, there was no such thing as guardrails on a scaffold, never mind anchors connected to a house. So there's been great improvement, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think, 25 years doing this, I've definitely seen an improvement over time. And the statistics, as John pointed out, the statistics do indicate that. Unfortunately, as John pointed out, the fatality rates stay the same. But when we look at the stats, the LTIs and the illnesses, the occupational illnesses, are declining. And that is because we have a greater awareness. There's a better awareness in the workforce, and there's less, I feel like, and this is opinion, I feel like there's less general, oh, I'm just going to do this even though it's risky, from the workers. I think there's more resistance from the workers to do something that's, unsafe. I think there's because they're better educated, they're more likely to say, no, I don't feel comfortable doing it this way, and they're going to reach out and ask for help on it. Jeremy, you want to add?
Yeah, the statistics are showing the low-level trips and slips are still there. Falling off the bottom 2 steps of a ladder is still the worst area. But overall, I'm finding myself, even on my sites, that from when I started to now, I have workers ringing me up and saying, oh, I know you're going to tell me off, but I wanted to do this. I thought I'd just check you with you. And I said, why would I tell you off? You're asking me about a safety question. You've thought about your safety. You're not going to hurt yourself. You've filled in your risk assessment already in your head, and I just run it through how to do it on online. But at the same time, they're asking the questions, when before they would have done it and then tried to hide it from me. So I'm finding personally within the organisations and the trades that they are trying to work harder. You'll still have the occasional person doing something silly because it's Friday afternoon for a long weekend and they think that by putting a ladder on a scaffold to just cork that top corner means they don't have to come back next week when they'll be in hospital instead. But that does still happen around Ottawa. I still get photos. I still take photos of that happening, but much, much less. Well, I'd probably take 5 photos when I first moved here in a year. Now I'd be lucky to get 1 every 2 years, but I'll still find them. But so yes, it is getting much better and people are listening and people are wanting to work smarter.
Cognizant of time, looks like we're getting near the end here. I do want to plug, if you are on LinkedIn and you are not following John, you are missing out. He is one to follow on LinkedIn. He posts stuff like the court cases here. He posts photos and just, hey, what's wrong with this picture? He also disseminates information from the Ministry of Labour to the industry better than I could ever hope to. So you definitely should be following this man right here because he does a great job of keeping the industry informed really, really well.
I think, thank you, Jason. I think our time is up.
So, John, Jeremy, Jason, thank you so much for today's session. So on behalf of the OCA and CNM Electric, who's the gift sponsor today, thank you again, and thank you to all of you for participating this afternoon. That concludes today's session. So.
Thank you very much. Thanks for sponsoring. John, yeah, he's got the nice stuff.
Thank you. It's third-party training? Yeah. Third-party. So I work for you now.
Thank you.